Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another learning video. This video is going to be focused on taking pictures of coins. I'm going to focus specifically for this particular video about taking pictures of coins that are uncirculated, especially Lincoln cents. And that's important because obviously picture taking for uncirculated Lincoln cents takes on a whole new meaning and a whole new avenue than taking pictures for circulated Lincoln cents that are brown and circulated, right? Okay. Well, with that being said, I want to point out that currently in the room, unlike my video from yesterday, I don't have any other lighting on me other than the ambient room lighting. I have a spotlight, just like the one that you see right there, and another one over there. I have a spotlight. I have four of them in the room. And those four are the only lights that I currently have on at the moment. Okay, so what you see in front of you is basically my blank coin desk. I have my two microscopes over here, and I'll show those to you in a second. But basically, I have my coin pad that I use, and it's dark at the moment. It's black. I usually use a white piece of paper to have as a background for my coins. But what I'm trying to show you with this part of the video is the fact that all camera lenses that are set up for autofocus also have an auto light compensation to them. And to demonstrate that, simply just watch the screen for a second when I put my hands on the desk. See how it changes? I remove them, it darkens. So the iris inside the camera lens actually opens and closes based on the amount of light reflected at it. All right, so that should explain exactly what it is that we're going to talk about in the rest of the video. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to show you that over here I have my two microscopes. I have my little baby microscope, which we're going to actually use for this demonstration. The big microscope sits in front of it right here. And you're going to see that essentially I do not have any other lights on my desk at the moment. I don't have my circle light on, and I don't have my under cabinet light on up here. You can actually see my computer screen here, and you can actually even see how the camera compensates as I move this around in terms of gathering the light that it is looking for. All right, so what you see in front of you here is a 1956 Philadelphia Mint uncirculated Lincoln cent, right? It has no light on it other than the ambient light that is currently in the room. All camera lenses, regardless of which type they have some sort of an autofocus or an auto contrast setting on them that you can change. This particular one is no different. Now, I do have a couple of adjustable directional little lights that I got at IKEA that I'm going to turn onto this coin. And you can see essentially what happens, how bright it gets. But then take a look at what happens. The camera lens adjusts to the flooded light of what it is that I'm currently trying to put on the coin, and it compensates, so to speak. Okay, so with that being said, it compensates for it. I'm also going to turn on now my circular light that I have above my coin desk. We'll flip that on. You can see what happens there. I'm also going to turn on my under cabinet light. All right, so that under cabinet light really doesn't do much. It's not really a lot of extra light for taking pictures. What I'm also going to do here is you can see actually when I move my hand over or under my circular light and it gets in the way, that's quite a bit of light. I'm going to turn up the little LEDs that are on the microscope itself, and I've got them up all the way at full power, and you can see what happens to it. It basically kind of gives it a different look or a different tone. If I take away these two small little lights that I have, the little directional lights, you can see that essentially what you get is a very washed out coin. Okay, so why is that? Well, let's see if I can explain this in scale of lighting. Okay, so back to me for a second. Lighting, for the most part, has different color on the color spectrum. Everybody kind of knows when they go in looking for light bulbs, they're looking for soft white or bright white or daylight. Those colors on the spectrum are what are known as the Kelvin scale. Now, the Kelvin scale is important because it shows color differently in a camera lens as well as your own eyes. That's the reason why you guys tell the difference between, say, bright sunlight, if there's sunlight outside, not at the moment, and, say, an interior nice warm light. So the further down the Kelvin scale you go, for example, sunlight, daylight, is roughly at about 6,000 Kelvin on the scale. If you go to your local Home Depot and you go to buy a light bulb, 5,000 is considered daylight on their scale. And the further down you work yourself, the warmer the light color becomes, the more yellow it becomes. So a regular incandescent light bulb, for example, is roughly at about 2,700 on the Kelvin scale. That gives you an idea as to the difference between bright daylight and an incandescent light. The absolute best color to take pictures of a Lincoln cent uncirculated coin is 3,500 Kelvin on the scale. Okay, so all of the backgrounds I have been using so far have been white backgrounds. What happens if the coin that I just had up on the screen has a different background underneath it? Let's take a look and see. All I am doing here is changing some of the color of the paper that is currently used. I have changed nothing else. I have not changed anything in terms of lighting. I still have my circle light on. And I got interrupted, but I'm not going to edit that one out. And I still have the two directional lights on the coin. Okay, so this is a green paper background. You can see what winds up happening here. Let's try a little bit darker background, like let's say maybe a blue background. All right, so this is actually a dark blue background. You can see how the coin starts to wash itself out. And the reason for that is because the camera is actually trying harder to see more light because there's not as much of a light around the coin. All right, so let's try red. I get a lot of people that like to put coins on red backgrounds, especially Lincoln cent coins. Well, I'm here to tell you, no. You don't want to do that. Let's see if I can get this adjusted right. There, centered. So here's what happens when you use a red background. It actually doesn't make the coin any redder. It actually starts to over pink the Lincoln cent. All right. So with that being said, what about black? Well, here's everybody's fatal error when they try and take pictures of Lincoln cents on different backgrounds. The darker you go, the worse it winds up being. Let's get this centered here. That's not lined up. Now you get the worst of all worlds. You get pink, you get yellows, you get hot spots, you get absolutely everything that you don't want with this coin. All right, right? Well, I'm going to do one more thing. Hold on. Okay, so I am going to put this back on a white background. And what I have it on is basically an old NGC slab that I use. You can see it come up here in a second. There's the slab. I'm going to have to readjust this because it's going to be out of focus because it's now just slightly taller. And there we go. And again, I have changed nothing in terms of lighting other than the color of the background. Now you actually start to see the copper. So now it's just a matter of adjusting the Kelvin scale and the amount of light you're giving to the coin in the direction that you need it to be. So I'm adjusting these little directional lights, and I'm also going to turn up the light on my overhead circular light and move it around a little bit. And now you can see what winds up happening in terms of being able to take a picture of the coin. Okay, so let's summarize really quick. This is take number 6, almost 7 maybe, for this particular last little segment. I keep messing it up. It is what it is, but at least I can edit it. So let's summarize here. Number 1, you don't need to go out and buy a brand new camera because most of your phone's cameras will do an adequate or above adequate job in terms of taking the picture. You don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of really fancy lighting. That doesn't necessarily need to change either. What you need to change is the color of your background. I am not kidding when I tell you that if you change the color of your background, you will be able to take much better pictures in terms of the color of the coin that represents a more natural look to the actual coin itself, especially if you're dealing with bright, shiny, brilliant Lincoln cents. There you go. Hopefully this video helped.